time for the main event. It's the Shoe Shine.
¿Qué onda, vatos locos? Damas y caballeros, it's your boy Dave in the 702 coming at you for a special Shoe Shine Friday lunchtime show with my great friend, Big Dog Lukey Boxing, staff writer for BOXINGSCENE.com in the house, as well as a published author. We'll talk about his book later. And just glad to have you out on a lunchtime Friday. Shout out to you, Lukey, and everybody in the Bay Area. Miss y'all in the Bay. Great to have you. How's things going?
Thank you so much. I love the professionalism for the intros. It feels like I'm on a terrestrial radio. I love the energy. You're an amazing host. And I'd love to say also that it is a great honor and privilege to be able to be at Boxing Scene because of guys like Tris Dixon, Jason Langendorf, and the other fine people there, Matt Christie, my guy David, many other people, Declan Warrington, very underrated writer. So when people put the Boxing Scene label on me, it's really a collective group of great people like Kieran Mulvaney, Eric Rask, too many people to thank, but it's really not me. It's a collective of some of the Murderers Rows, Ryan Sangia, the best writers in boxing, and it's kind of silly sometimes that I've found myself there. But I'm here today on behalf of a special occasion, Elite Underdog Promotions, and they're running a show next Saturday, the Alameda County Fairgrounds. I always call it the Pleasanton Fairgrounds, and maybe we'll get into that however you feel like getting into it. But I'm here on their behalf to bring awareness to this great action-packed card of local fighters 50-50 matchups.
It's interesting you bring that up. You bring back flashbacks. I used to go to the Alameda County Fair, which was always a hot summer there at the Alameda County Fairgrounds. And I can even remember the Halloween haunts for those people that are into horror. They put on great, but I did not know that they're putting on boxing events. I'm putting up the flyer now, and I'm really excited you're going to be a part of this production because we all know that for me, who came from the Bay Area, this is where future champions are built. This is where we find out who the next Andre Ward, who the next Nonito Donaire might be out of the Bay Area, who the next, and big shout out to Andy El Tiburon Vences. I don't know, have you talked to Andy? His YouTube channel is looking great. The gym, Stone Boxing is looking good.
If you need him, we can work that out. You know, that's my guy. And I got Andy Vence's stories for days. You know, I was around him from his first pro fight to basically his last fight. So, I mean, me and him, you know, don't give us a lunch hour and some time to talk about back in the day because we could bore you a lot, you know.
Now, I'd love to hear all those stories. I hope other people do. And I just been noticing how great Stone Boxing looks and how important it is for just people in the South Bay, you know, revitalizing the downtown San Jose area. Is that where the gym is?
You know, yeah, I don't believe so. Sadly,
No?
I haven't been able to go down there just yet. That's my guy. But it's like as you get older, like so when I first met Andy, I was basically like 25 or so or something. You have a lot of free time when you start hitting your 40s compared to 25, or you have less free time. And you can't even explain it to someone in their 20s how little time you have when you're in your 40s. It doesn't even make sense. Like I always say, like I remember when Matt Ryan was a rookie for the Atlanta Falcons, and it took so long for a 135 playoff game to start. And now if I'm waiting for an NFL game, it feels like I blink and it starts. And I don't understand how the time goes so fast, but I just have so much to do. So that's one of those unfortunate things that in 2025 we're going to fix. And I'm going to go down there and maybe we'll do a vlog for your great channel. Maybe we'll do a call in from Stone Boxing.
Oh, that would be awesome. I'm dying to, I know my wife has been even more so probably dying to get back to the Bay Area and just see our roots and visit our loved ones and whatnot. The next generation of fighters at the Alameda County Fairgrounds. I see so many fighters. One kid I've been paying close attention to is David Lopez out of Oakland, who's been on with that OTX cards. What can you, I mean, before I get to these new crop of fighters, Lukey, David Lopez looks really, really impressive. And I'm shocked that it wasn't picked up by a larger promoter. But for those of people that don't know or are not familiar with David Lopez, what can you tell me about him? Because he's been looking great on those OTX cards.
He's a top up and comer, right? And, you know, he's passed all those checkpoints that you ask of a young fighter, right? A great amateur, He's got a great coach in his father, someone that also loves him a lot too. So it's like you have that support system, a great coach, and he was a great amateur. And I remember watching him with Prentice Brewer back in the day, and we didn't know who he was, and he was fighting at Golden Gloves, California, and American Canyon, not Grand Canyon, and he just stood out as a top guy. And I would tell you, if you asked me, I'd say, oh, that was 4 years ago. It's more like 11 years ago, sadly. And he's just one of these guys where everything he has all the potential. He has all the thing. It just comes down to how the sport of boxing breaks, how the opportunities align, because he has all the talent. And I mean, this is no exaggeration, to be a superstar, to be one of those top guys that can make a run. It just comes down to the path and how he handles each step of the way, because talent is a big thing with up and comers, but it's also life decisions. It's how you manage your time. It's how you deal with stress, right? You and me could go and drink a Trumer pills or something, but a boxer can't, there's a lot of X factors that people don't think. People look at talent and think talent is the only thing. But oftentimes you look at a guy like Tim Bradley, he's very talented, but it was the intangibles that made Tim Bradley. And I think people overlook the intangibles with fighters. And with David, he has every ability to be, and I mean no exaggeration, to be a Hall of Fame boxer, but he's got to earn it. We're not going to gift it to him. We're not going to say, okay, David, you're a Hall of Fame boxer, you're good. He's got to go out there and earn it the way Andre Ward earned it, the way that I believe Robert Guerrero earned it. And I think he can. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do.
Yeah. Oh, wow, man. You was talking about there might be some Gilroy fighters. I just realized Robert Guerrero's son is basically embarking on his professional career. He just fought in Vegas. Are they based out of here? Robert Guerrero's son?
I don't.
Out of Las
I
Vegas?
think that it's between the two, right? I think that they maybe train. I don't know the full situation. I know Robert Guerrero's son is one of the fighters that makes me feel very old, because I remember interviewing Robert and his son was like maybe 7 or 8. And now it's not even that long, really, like 11, 12 years. But you think of kids that you don't see as 7 or 8 for like 5 years. And now you're like, wait, he's an adult?
Well, what about what
Yeah.
about Bob Santos' son, who, I mean, I go to fights in Vegas, and his 22, 23-year-old son is one of the, hottest ringside with cutman, or not cutman, but ring assist guys. He's working every fight, hanging out with all the young fighters. It's great to see people like that, father, sons passing on the business. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean by making you feel old. And shout out to Bob Santos and his son.
Well, just to steal the show on your show, the one that makes me feel old is Costa Zoo and Tim Zoo, because I was following Costa Zoo, and now I'm following his son's career. And I remember following Costa when he was going, and you really start to go, man, a whole friggin' generation. That's when you start but it's all good. That's aging, and a lot of people, yeah.
And Fernando Vargas and his 3 sons now, the dynasty. Of course, that one makes me feel. That would have been special if I had raised a son and had a champion like that. That would probably be the ultimate coolest thing there. But speaking of the next generation of fighters, these are all father-son duels. Robert Guerrero, his son's active. Tim Tszyu has already achieved being a world champion. Who should we be looking out for this card? And again, what's the specific date? And how can people watch this? This is coming up Memorial Day weekend?
Memorial Day weekend, right? So you're going to have a long weekend. So let's bring it in with some good fights. So let me give you the logistics on this, right? It's the next generation of fighters. It's taking place at the Alameda County Fairgrounds. Doors open at 4 o'clock. Fights start at 5 p.m. The best way you can find out and get tickets is go Benjamin Boxing on Instagram. It's spelled Benjamin the way you hope you would spell Benjamin in boxing, like boxing. If you have problems with that, well, getting tickets might be difficult. The guys that stand out to me, Willie Shaw against Salvador Bercino. That is a good 50-50 fight against 2 guys that have not been scared to take fights. Up-and-comer Gabriel Garcia is the main event fighter. He's 130-pounder action fighter, a lot of promise, a lot of potential. Fight I love is Mikey the Bull, Michael Portelis. Very good fighter, came into the sport late, taking on Alton Wiggins. They both have lost on the big stage, but it's very even 50-50 fight. We got Kumar Prescott. He's someone that I think has championship potential. Braulio Navarro is another guy that I think is worth keeping an eye on. I'm hearing good things about Sergio Gonzalez out of Sacramento and Tiara Womack. Interesting story. Works a white collar job, making her pro debut, believes she can make a title run. And some of these fighters are actually training with Ollie Benjamin, a fantastic coach out of Benjamin's Boxing in San Ramon. How cool is that? San Ramon, not traditionally thought of as a fight town, but Ollie Benjamin bringing a gym that's building community to San Ramon and then building up shows as professional shows to help his young fighters. So if they're having trouble getting fights, building themselves, now taking on the financial burden along with his partner who's helping him to give these guys opportunities, to give them good fights, to give them really things. So I think you come out, you're going to see some action fights. There's a lot of fights. Oh, I forgot Kyle Lockenlea, Filipino-American, very good fighter, exciting fighter. He's taking on a tough fight. Rodolfo Molina, you might not know the name, Walter Molina, but he was in the gym with us when Tino and Andy Vences were at Fight Corps. So he was in the gym there. He's an 0-1 fighter, but he was in the gym around those guys. So this is a top guy for his level on the club level. So it's a really good fight. I think if you get a ticket, you're going to be very excited.
We got Gold member in the chat asking if you do know, if you do know, how much are these tickets starting for?
I think the best way to look would be to go to the Instagram and go to Benjamin's Boxing. Also, leave a comment or look at their information, but also maybe leave a comment on the Instagram and say you heard about on the Shoe Shine Boxing podcast from Lukey, and just let them know. And I'm sure they'll get back to you. I don't quite have the details. I was just told to go to the Instagram page and find the information there.
Lukey, with club show, a lot of people don't realize that when fighters start their club show career that they're encouraged or maybe even required to sell tickets. Is that still a thing with these smaller clubs?
It's always a hit or miss thing, right? Because that's a strategy to make sure that you keep revenue, because these shows don't happen for free, right? I'm a nice guy, but Southwest doesn't just let me get on a plane ticket because I'm a nice guy. The people that have the buildings don't just let you throw a show because you have good intentions. You do have to make money. But I'm not sure the dynamic of that stuff. There's different business models and there's different strategies at place. The big thing is you have to find a feasible means to be able to keep fighters active and to not break your bank trying to build guys up. And really, this is the type of event where it's an exciting card top to bottom, and you're really going to be able to get an opportunity to see some good action fights. Maybe you see one or two guys that can go on to have big TV fights, good careers. But really, these are the fights that I think more so than anything, they build up. If you take a 14-year-old to this card, this could create a fight fan because you take a father, son, and you take a child. And these, more than anything, I think people remember these type of shows and the direct connection you have with the fighters. And let's say you have a friend who likes boxing, but it's more casual interest. Bring them to this card. And if they like a fighter, they can probably talk to them or have a beer with them in 10 minutes after their fight. And that's I think that's the special thing, is you're going to see action fights, good fights, but you're also going to, and I say have a beer. I'm joking, obviously, in the chat, the fighters wouldn't drink a beer, but it's going to be exciting. And I think the big excitement is there's not that barrier at these bigger shows where you can't reach out and kind of meet the guys. They're in the back room. At this show, you're going to see some great action fights, and then you're going to be able to interact with them and maybe even get to know them,
So, it's interesting. I wanted to find a segue naturally into some of the bigger stories. And I had a show last week where I titled it, is it the return of the great Filipino-Mexican rivalry? And we just got treated to what could have been an incredible fight in San Diego between Navarrete, a champion at 126, against Charlie. I was thinking of Charlie Suarez. And that fight ended in controversy, a major controversy, where we're going to wait for the California State Athletic Commission to rule on that being a win for Navarrete, who retained his title. But I can remember still living in the Bay Area and all these great Filipino fight fans. And now it seems like I think a lot of them were very much interested in this Charlie Suarez fight. But I really feel like we have a potential to bring back that rivalry for 2025. And it kicked off last week, obviously. And now we have the news that it's official. that Manny Pacquiao, who I remember Manny Pacquiao having thousands of fans show up to the San Francisco Giants Stadium for a media day. Like, I remember that, like, just like it was yesterday.
I was there. Yeah, I was there.
Right.
Were you there? Were you media or were you a fan?
No, I was a fan, but I mean, I remember that like just yesterday, like Manny Pacquiao doing tours, obviously
11 years ago.
What, damn, that was 11 years ago. I remember it like yesterday.
Chris Algieri told me that. I think he said 11 years ago in February, we were around each other. And that was the first time I met Chris. And not that you want me to come on and just tell you about my life, but let me come on and tell you about my life. Chris is like a special person in boxing for me because it's always like as I advance, Chris is like right ahead of me. So it's like my first big gig to go to a big fight. Chris is fighting Pacquiao. It's like that was like a big fight for me. Okay, Chris is there. Then I work at Snack as a filmer. Oh, Chris is the nutritionist. It's like Chris is there again. And then I get a big opportunity. I'm over at Boxing Pro Box. Who do you think's over there? Chris. It's like every big opportunity in my career, Chris Algieri is right there. And it's kind of cool because Chris is like always ahead of me. But it's like he's always like guiding the way in a certain way for like when I level up, I look over and I see Chris Algieri. So I always hold him in high regard as a fighter, but as a person, because it's kind of cool when you have different people that are consistently on a similar kind of journey. Obviously, my journey is a lot lower level than his journey, but still, it means a lot.
Well, I think he's one of the best who to like Paulie, to transition into commentary. He was a nutritionist and also a world champion kickboxer. A big fan of Chris Algieri's career path. Yeah, wow, 11 years ago. So it's no stranger. Hey, the Bay Area is no stranger to having big fighters. We had Andre Ward, of course. We have Nonito Donaire, who's talking about coming back. Nonito Donaire, who lives here in Las Vegas now. I saw him recently, and like I just asked him on a whim. I said, Nonito, who is the next Bay Area champion? Who's going to be the next champion out of the Bay Area? And he hesitated, and then he said, Flores. Well, and he walked away. But I could only assume he was talking about Flores from Stockton, California, who he has a relationship with, right? Who fought on Pro Box recently, did come away with a win. But what's he talking? Is there another Flores I'm missing, or is he talking about Gabriel Flores of Stockton?
Wait, who said what about Gabriel?
Nonito Donaire. So I saw him at the MGM, and I got caught off guard. And I was like, Nonito, who is the next champion out of the Bay Area? And he said
Gabriel.
He said Flores. So obviously,
I mean,
it'd be
very
Gabriel.
well could be. He could be. You know, he's a great fighter, and I've been telling people his father is one of the most underrated trainers. And I've seen basically Gabriel's career from start to finish. Well, it's not finished, but start to now. And when he is on, he's one of the most incredible fighters I've ever seen. You know, people always talk about, I know this and that about boxing. A lot of my knowledge that I know about boxing comes from Gabriel Flores and his dad, because I had a bird's eye view watching them come up and being around them so much, being around them and Bilal Mahassan. These are great boxing minds. So when I knew nothing and when I was stupid, you put yourself around some of the smartest people in boxing, you're gonna learn something. And I kind of, you won't believe this, or your audience won't believe it, but I just shut up and just kind of listen. So for me, I see Gabriel as a world champion, and I'd be very shocked if he doesn't become a world champion. But the other thing I know about boxing is it isn't fair. And as I said before to you, talent is only part of the equation. So just because you're talented doesn't mean you're going to be a champion, you know. And I'm starting to learn that in the second half of my journey in boxing is talent is only part of the thing. And Gabriel, I'm not sure he's the most talented fighter I've been around, but he's in the top 5 of the most talented I've ever seen. And when he's on, he's as good as anybody I've ever seen.
I'm taking it. I'm going to take Nonito as an expert opinion. I got a lot of respect for Nonito. And I'm wondering, he must be inspired. You always know he's, you know, like you feel like he still feels he had something left, even though most of us would see that he had a little bit of decline as he approached his 40s. But he still has one of the most memorable fights against, the monster from Japan. He had one of the most memorable fights, two fights. Is he inspired? I mean, there's got to be some inspiration here by Manny Pacquiao, now returning officially at 46 years old, July 20th in Las Vegas. The co-main feature is going to be the rematch between Tim Tszyu and Sebastian Fundora for Sebastian Fundora's sole title. This card is looking really good, by the way. Angel Fierro rematch with Pitbull Cruz. Like that first fight was incredible. I got to give credit to PBC. A lot of people felt like, oh, PBC, there was a lot of chatter. They're done with, Turkey's taking them out, or, their shows. There's not enough content coming out of them. But PBC is really stepping up this summer in Las Vegas. We got dates May 31st or May 3rd. We got Caleb Plant coming up. We have this super fight, nostalgia, the return of Manny Pacquiao, whether or not I want to talk to you about that, whether we agree or not about him coming back at 46 and being ranked by the WBC. Then you have August, Lamont Roach versus Gervonta Tank Davis rematch number 2. You have 3 months of incredible big attractions, big stars. And then to top it all off, we get Mexican Independence Day. I don't even know if it's going to be in Vegas. Last I heard, it was at Allegiant Stadium Friday, and now I'm hearing the date has moved from the Ring magazine. But because the date has moved, Lukey, this I do know, Saturday is not available at Allegiant Stadium. So that's a big deal. That's already locked into the college football team, UNLV. They cannot have it there. Having such a mega fight, I can just imagine. You need a stadium for that fight in September. But I want your thoughts on Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao coming back at 46 years old and getting an immediately ranked position by Mauricio Suleiman of the WBC. Number 5. And it had been talked about for a long time. Mario Barrios and Bob Santos and his team were something, maybe they're chasing greatness, chasing legacy, or chasing a big name on their resume. But what are your thoughts about 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao coming back?
Well, look, I'm not as mad at the sanctioning bodies for sanctioning him, because Pacquiao is like one of the 20 greatest fighters I've ever seen. So if he decides to come back, he probably is one of the 15 best guys, even at any age. So I'm not as opposed to that, as I'm just not compelled to see an older fighter who I saw struggle in an exhibition fight and look like an older man. It doesn't do much for me, but I don't think the fight's meant for me. My initial thoughts are, it reminds me of Ray Leonard fighting Hector Camacho. In like 11 or 12-year-old me that didn't really see Ray Leonard, I was really excited to see Ray Leonard. And I imagine there's 15 to 22 to 23-year-old Filipino kids or fight fans who their dads liked Pacquiao. This fight's probably more for young kids that never got the Pacquiao experience that we got, because we went on a great run from really 05 to 2018 was just a great run of Mayweather and Pacquiao. Like, you really don't get those type of guys in the sport. We're learning. You don't get those type of figures. We just took it for granted. And we thought there'd be another one, but there really hasn't been another one since. Maybe Canelo, but he hasn't had that. I guess Golovkin, Canelo kind of was that. But to me, this is more like a reunion rock band tour. It's like the Aerosmith is going on tour, and they're doing it. And you know it's not
the Eagles at the Sphere.
Yeah,
like a residency.
Yeah, and the kids are coming out, and they're like, "Dad always plays. Like, I don't want to close my eyes because I miss you, babe." And the kid is singing with Dad, and it's a moment. So I think this is more for the fighters to get some money, and for like children and parents to gather around and watch someone that they didn't get to experience in person and build a bond with their parent. But I don't think that it really fits per se into my schedule of, man, this is an interesting fight that I'm really going to think a lot about.
So they do have a statement from Mauricio Suleiman. Ring put this one out here. It says, "Remember Sugar Ray Leonard, my father, Jose Suleiman, and the WC were criticized for making his fight versus Marvin Hagler. Manny Pacquiao has been licensed by Nevada. He's passed all medicals, and as a legendary WBC champion has been approved to fight by our organization. Let's talk July 20th. He's 46 years old. I'm concerned. I'm actually concerned for him. I did see that fight, the exhibition he had against that Japanese kickboxer who was much larger than him. But also, I've had the privilege to meet the WBC champion Mario Barrios. He was with Brian Mendoza one day at Cosmopolitan. I ran into them both. And I thought I was 5'11", Lukey, and I must be shrinking in my 40s because Mario Barrios seemed to be not only taller.
He's like 6'1", bro.
Yeah.
Boxers lie about their height.
His shoulders are
That's the only ones that say that they're smaller.
I'm like, damn, dog, how do you make 147? And he just kind of looked at me like, I'm like, dude, he's got like a very wide back. Mario Barrios is a very large welterweight, guys. And Mario and Manny Pacquiao,
nicest guy ever.
Manny Pacquiao, I'm sure is, he's a much smaller opponent. I thought Manny Pacquiao struggled against this in the exhibition, obviously, and now he's going to be fighting the current WBC champion. I'm a little bit concerned about him not coming out of this with injuries, but if he wants to do it, look, the nostalgia is there. I know for a fact if he makes it through, we talked about it briefly, how tough training camps are. And I really was thinking, how heavy is his sparring going to be for this? Because sparring like that when he was younger, I'm sure could result potentially in an injury putting this fight off, right?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I just think that this fight is going to be an attraction fight, big name fighters. You have to favor Barrios being younger. You can't count out a legend. But I don't think it's going to be one of the action-packed fights of the year. If you were asking my opinion, which you're not asking my opinion, but I'll just give it to you. More than likely, probably Barrios will outbox him being younger, and it would just be kind of a whatever thing. Pacquiao has a really great team, man. He has a strong team, starting with the management to his trainer. These are world-class people. I'm not as worried because he has people that like him, care about him, and they're all in for him. So if things aren't going right in this fight, I think that people will pull the plug. I just think it's more of a novelty fight, It's someone that made a deep connection. I think it also speaks to where boxing is right now. We have a lot of really great fighters, but we have a lot of fighters that aren't making deep connections with fans. And that's kind of an overarching theme that I'm seeing is guys like Pacquiao still mean more to fans than a lot of these up-and-comers. And I think the reason Pacquiao means so much, it's not just they represent the Philippines and that. He took chances, man. He took risks. And we're seeing in these big fights lately, guys aren't taking risks. And that's when, not that any fighter should appease me or the fans, but you want to be a beloved fighter, you got to take risks. Because if you don't take risks, the fans aren't going to emotionally care when you fight. It's the guys that take chances, the guys that put it on the line sometimes, the guys that take a hard fight, the guys that are willing to push themselves. Those are the ones that, they get the grace from the fans that want to fork out $500 to see them one time because those are the legends of the era. And I think we're seeing a lot of guys that are very comfortable making money, but not comfortable putting it on the line to be up there with the Ray Robinsons, the Ray Leonards. I don't think being an all-time great matters to a lot of American fighters, to be honest with you. I think that we have an era of American fighters that would rather be rich than be legends.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody who's watching right now. We're here sitting down talking with Lucas Ketelle of BOXINGSCENE.com. Of course, he has his own channel here at Big Dog Lukey. Shout out to Nando. Appreciate you being here on a Friday afternoon. We're talking about Manny Pacquiao's return July 20th. And you just made a great point about fighters not challenging themselves. Some might accuse that entire division of 147 of people, champions and the prospects, contenders, dodging each other in hopes to get to one of those titles. We got 4 titles. You just wrote a great piece about Brian Norman Jr., who had failed negotiations last year. Oh, the light looks great, Lukey. Failed negotiations with, of course, the cream of the crop, in my opinion, and Boots Ennis of Philadelphia. And I'm watching that a lot of these fighters are making appearances in Japan and choosing to go fight in Japan. And you wrote this great piece. Jin Sasaki, people that are not aware of Jin Sasaki, the guy is a really fun welterweight that he's going to go and defend his title in Japan. Lukey, I got a list here of all the fighters, including last weekend, just I think Sunday, we had El Puma, Fernando Martinez, the 115-pound champion.
Yeah, good fighter.
Great fighter. Rematch Ioka 2, taking a chance Maybe he's not U.S. based, he's Argentinian, but still, nonetheless, we're having all these fighters, including Angelo Leo, who I got a privilege to meet just 2 weeks ago at the Inoue fight. Angelo Leo, the guy who I never thought I would see the former champion get knocked out like that, and he did it. He did it. Now, you've also got a Mexican fighter who I haven't watched too much of, but Anthony Casachi, who just stopped Lee Wood this past weekend. He basically gave up his IBF title, and that title is coming up here. Eduardo Sugar Nunez of Sinaloa fighting Rikishi May 28th for the vacant IBF 130-pound title, the same division Oshaki Foster is in. We could have another Mexican star becoming a champion in Japan. We got Brian Norman going June 19th to Japan. Angelo Leo going next week. What is motivating all these people to, instead of fighting domestically here in the U.S., which is supposed to be the fight capital of the world, supposedly I live in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas. Now we got all these fighters taking giant risks going to Japan. Is there something I don't know?
Well, first off, it's money and opportunity. And I think we have different types of fighters. So we got these superstar fighters that, want it on superstar terms. And then you got blue collar guys like Brian Norman or Angelo Leo, who've had harder roads and have had to fight on club shows. And they're more willing, if they get an opportunity, I think that I love seeing that. And why I say I love seeing it is you see a will to win. Angelo Leo's a champion, but he's going to go fight in Japan because it's Street Fighter 2, the video game, right? He wants to get on a plane and defend his title like you do in the game. You're going to someone. And that is what's kind of missing in boxing is we had an era where guys were like, I'm the champion, you must meet my demands. Well, Brian Norman is, to me, the most likable welterweight champion we've had in some time because he's just saying, yeah, I'll go there. Sure. I like being on the road. Jin Sasaki, action fighter. Cool. I'll fight you. Okay. Who's next? If he fights him, I'll go to your hometown. Wins the belt from Giovanni in Giovanni's hometown. I mean, I think it speaks to different mentalities, and there's a uprising of some blue collar U.S.-based fighters who've had adversities and have had hard careers, and they're willing to travel. And I find them very unique and likable.
Yeah, you and I were talking on the phone about Angelo Leo. Some of you guys who are hardcore PBC fans may remember Tomiko. What is it? What is it? Do you know his nickname? Tomiko's nickname? I don't know it, but nonetheless, guys, Tomiko Kamita, if you guys don't know his story, was a PBC fighter briefly, made a championship run, I think, at 118, but he lived in Guadalajara. So he grew up his high school formative years as a Guadalajara fighter. So he's basically, this could be a great fight domestically, I think, Lukey, but I don't see any promotion. Tomiko speaks perfect Spanish. I haven't seen a press conference. I haven't seen anything about it other than I know that this fight should be very good. I do remember Tomiko Kamita when he was in his prime, per se. And Angelo Leo is just hitting his in my opinion, his prime, now a two division world champion and a great guy. By the way, Lukey, I was telling you, tons of Japanese fans at the T-Mobile Arena. I mean, Angelo Leo was just walking around, enjoying having that belt. And tons of Japanese fans that could barely speak English were like, hey, excited to see him. They know he's coming to Japan in just a couple of weeks. And he was just taking it all in like, damn, I'm getting noticed. I'm like, fuck yeah. I talked to him. I'm like, dude, I seen all your fights, bro. That was amazing how you knocked out the former 126-pound champion, coming from Pro Box too. Nonetheless, how many guys have had incredible success coming off major performances on Pro Box?
Pro Box, think about Pro Box, how it's helping so many fighters' careers. Angelo Leo was inactive, gets a little bit of activity, wins a title fight, and now he's arguably the best guy in the division. This is time and time again, we're seeing Pro Box guys take tough fights, and those tough fights are building guys. And I think there's two paths in boxing. And I know you didn't ask me this, and you're like, this is boring. And most of the people in the chat are like, shut up. But I'm going to give you something really boring. There's two paths in boxing. You have to take either hard fights and prove yourself, or you're a top up and comer and you are guided to a point, and then when you get to that point, you take your hard fights. The problem is we've had eras where there have been guys that need to take hard fights, that want the path of easy building, and they're just not at that level. The way for them, and this goes back to the Elite Underdog Promotions show, right? What makes that show special is a lot of the guys on these shows, right, aren't going to be your traditional blue chip prospect. You might have 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 guys that could be a blue chip prospect on this card. But for some of these guys to get to a TV card, and this goes back to the Leo thing, they got to take some hard fights, be matched evenly, and get that experience. So then when they get in with a prospect, or they get in with a good tough fighter with a loss or two, they now have that experience and that self-belief that they can go win it. And you look at a guy like Angelo Leo, losing to Stephen Fulton might have been the best thing in his career because he had some time off, and now he has self-belief that he can be a 2-division world champion. He never lost the inner belief of his greatness. And that's, in the modern era, one of the most special things. Another fighter who's on Pro Box, Justin Paleto, comes to mind. He's a guy who lost a couple of fights, and he's never looked at himself any differently. And it's all about momentum. And I don't even know if I'm answering the question, but that's what's so special about this Elite Underdogs promotion card is it's giving guys that might be brought in as B-side fighters and in with guys that might have physical advantages over them. They're being tested equally to gain valuable experience. So if they're brought in tough fights or competitive fights, they get that experience to learn how to win. And I think on a bigger stage, Leo and some other guys did that.
Yeah, just this past weekend, Erickson Lubin, who I think he was kind of on the gift side decision against one of my favorite guys, young fighters, Jesus Ramos Jr. of Arizona. Nonetheless, a smashing performance on Pro Box this past Saturday. Now lined up for a fight against, I think, one of the scariest champions in the 154-pound division, and he's all for it. He's fucking riding in full confidence right now to fight Bakhtar Mortazeliov. I hope I didn't butcher his name, but Mortazeliov, who just destroyed Tim Tszyu. Like, Erickson Lubin is very confident coming off that performance. And I just see it time and time again that Pro Box is doing the right thing, getting fighters who have been maybe overlooked or had just a loss or two, who have been written off. And these guys come back time and time again on Pro Box, rebuild their career, and suddenly find themselves in a championship fight opportunity and succeed. Like Angelo Leo, like I didn't see that coming. I really thought the Angelo Leo, I didn't see that coming. And yet again, I've been proved wrong time and time again. Maybe Erickson Lubin does get that Mortazeliov fight. Maybe he does beat Mortazeliov, something that, Tim Tszyu wasn't able to do. Just great things coming out of that. But speaking about fight, you made another great point about fighters that are not wanting to challenge themselves. When I look back at the career of controversial Teofimo, and Teofimo's been, I talked about it on the show, he's actually quite charming in person. When I met him in Las Vegas and his father on the same night, he can be charming. I think he knows when to turn it on and off, but he's also very controversial, obviously, because of racial dynamics and things he's been saying lately outside of the ring. I'm not in agreement with, but his career at 135, when we talk about those 4 kings, he's the one that did it. Like, there are fighters with 20 plus fights, prospects at Top Rank and other promotional outfits. Teo, what did he win his first title with 15 fights? I think, right? Didn't he start his epic title run?
Very young age. Yeah, it's just, for me, it's been the inconsistency. But I think that part of the inconsistency comes from some lifestyle, but also winning a title at a young age. You're going to have adversities, right? Because traditionally you don't want a 21-year-old to win a title, because you don't want a 21-year-old to make $1 million. Because if I made $1 million at 21 years, I don't know where I'd be. It's a lot to ask of someone. And I think that Teo's as talented of a fighter as we've ever seen, but it's the inconsistency that I think frustrates the fight fans, because he'll look like a Hall of Fame boxer against some of these guys, and then against other guys, you're wondering if he's even a capable operator. And it's just hard to rank him the way maybe you'd rank other guys.
Yeah, I do agree. Oftentimes it looks like he's fighting down to the level of opposition. But and I clearly, I thank you again. I clearly remember one time you came on the Shoe Shine, and bam, next thing you know, we had Arnold Barboza Jr. on the Shoe Shine, making an appearance. And
I remember that. Yeah, you just had me call him, and you were like, "What's going on here?" And Arnold popped up.
He popped up. That was awesome. And I've been following his career. And also outside of outside Arnold Barboza, outside of the ring, like he enjoys the comedy scene, and he actually knew some comedians. I know some of the Mexican comedians, and he put on shows, which was really cool. But to finally see him get his opportunity against Tio, and then, I had a lot of people thinking Arnold could be the guy who pulled off the upset just 2 weeks ago in New York City in Times Square. They thought that maybe Arnold Barboza, based on how he looked, particularly in his very last fight, always as good as your last fight, that he might actually pull the upset. But then Tio out of nowhere shows us again that he's got levels. Shit, he just turned it up to that next level with that. That next level is better than your level. And I've got the picture here. There's already a lot of chatter about this. But again, you said fighters don't want to challenge themselves. Tio is not asking to move up to welterweight. And like Ryan Garcia, same card. Ryan Garcia, I'm moving up to welterweight. I'm going to fight Rolly Romero, who started his career at 135. No, Tio is asking to move up and fight the very best, the ultimate killer in that division, Boots Ennis. Jerome Boots Ennis, Philadelphia fighter, Drew Evo's fighter. He's asking to fight the very best. I have to respect him for that. I don't respect him, but all the nonsense he's talking outside of the ring, the racial talk guys. He's going to be involved in a hearing with the WBO regarding some of his rhetoric outside of the ring, things he's been saying. You guys have probably seen it online. But, hey, I got to give the guy props, man. He's consistently looks for the toughest challenges. Lomachenko, the list goes on and on of people. So I got to give Tio some praise here. I mean, he's asking to fight Boots Ennis, and it looks like, from what I'm reading, that it's serious. It's being seriously talked about and negotiated at this point, right?
I have no clue.
You're not clear?
You typically know more about this because I am so focused on like 4 to 6 to 8 round fighters that like what's happening at the biggest level of the sport. I don't often not to kill the buzz, but like there's times where I watch the undercard and I don't watch the main card because I just know what's going to happen. I'll watch the highlights of it.
You're watching to see who the next champion, the prospects and contenders. Yeah,
just kind of looking at. I watch what I want to watch, right? So I'm looking for things and stuff, but like in terms of that, until you're going to say you're the most boring person ever, but I just wait until there's press releases. I just assume I'm being lied to if I don't get a press release. So until there's a press release, I don't expect anything.
I appreciate everybody that's in here. We're talking with Big Dog Lucas Ketelle, author and Boxing Scene staff writer. Wiley Coyote, good to see you. SB, thanks here. I saw Fonzie from the 619 in here, who Fonzie was just at this fight. Person in my chat took pictures with, is it Perla, the new Top Rank girl they just signed? There's a lot of women's fighters now. Yeah, he took a great picture with her this past weekend.
Did he put the cowboy hat on?
I think she had the cowboy hat on. Yeah, I think she had the pink cowboy hat, which is really cool. I'm not sure if Fonzie put that on, but it was a great picture nonetheless. Shout out to everybody in the San Diego area. This week is kind of slow for talking about previewing some fights, but I want to transition into these press conferences that are absolutely have been bonkers. This press, first of all, the Jake Paul, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. press conference I thought was very entertaining. And then it got even more wild the following day between Berlanga and Shiraz. I thought Berlanga was quite colorful, obviously. But I can remember being on a panel with you, and maybe I heard you say something about, don't be surprised if Jake Paul can manufacture himself into a legitimate title contender. And it's probably been a year and a half, maybe, I don't know. We've been in this circle for a while now. I don't know how long ago you said that. I clearly remember it, and it really stuck in my head. Like, can he actually do that? Can Jake Paul, who most of us didn't really take as a serious real boxer, and now it's really coming into fruition, Lukey. He's like a fight or two away. from being a cruiserweight contender. They put him on stage with Zurdo Ramirez, a great Mexican champion. Zurdo Ramirez wasn't even opposed to it. He's on stage and he's saying, "Hey, Jake is great. You know, Jake has his own challenges. He's got a challenge in front of him, but he basically didn't say no, Lukey." So,
I mean, can I say my little piece?
Yes.
In sheer honesty, a lot of these fighters people think are good just aren't as good as they think they are. And if you kind of can tell talent, Jake isn't that far removed from a lot of the fighters people are trying to build up. And for me, I always saw that. And sometimes I watch boxing and I feel like what I'm seeing, I face criticism. And it's just because what I see and what I believe to be true, and I have conviction, right? So I'm someone that believes in what I see. A lot of people, in my opinion, believe off of marketing or speak with emotion around they don't want to see something, or they speak on, oh, this can't happen. I'm just looking at skill sets and I'm looking at the money. And the money tells me that Jake will be a world champion, because there's always going to be a vacant belt that wants to be, that will be vacant for someone that's that big of a ticket seller. He will be a world champion. And if he will be. And it's like, when people laugh about that, to me, it's like astonishing to me, because it's like the amount of money he generates and the way they've guided his career. If a cruiser, so let me phrase this. Let's say Zordo and Apataya fight undisputed, and then one of the sanctioning bodies strips one of the champions. What would you do if Jake Paul was in the interim or the vacant title fight, and then a vulnerable guy was put in to fight Jake? What would you think?
I feel like it is really truly possible at this point that he can win an interim title. Somebody gets their title removed, and next thing I know, Jake Paul has been elevated to full champion status.
I think he wins a vacant belt. I think he wins a vacant belt probably against a guy who's a little bit smaller, start his career. Like, the fight that I think is really realistic is Badu Jack's a little bit older, really good fighter. What if there's a vacant cruiserweight fight between Jake Paul and Badu Jack?
Yeah, it's entirely possible. So, are you familiar with the fighter Paul Bomba? Cruiserweight Paul Bomba.
Yeah, my guy, sadly, R.I.P., did his last interview, actually, yeah.
That's incredible. I tried talking about it. I just couldn't get enough interest on the shoe shine. But the story that I'm not sure if the article was written by The Guardian or The Sun, but a UK newspaper really did an in-depth article about, they alluded to the fact that he manufactured his cruiserweight career and won 14 fights in 1 year. But he fought, like, his very last fight was against Porky Medina, right? Was it Porky Medina?
Yeah, it was against Porky Medina, yeah.
Yeah, fight fans are going to remember Porky Medina fighting legitimate, super middleweight guys.
And that Benavidez combination, when Benavidez put it on him. It was the worst knockout I've ever seen. Benavidez landed like a 15-piece punch combo on him.
So Paul Bomba beat him last 14 fights in 1 year. Most of them take place in Colombia. And everything that I read was that Paul Bomba was, and maybe because you interviewed him, but that he wanted to fight Jake Paul. He felt like that was going to be.
Felt like it was the next fight. Felt like it was going to be the next fight at that time. Yeah, and he was in the rankings and so forth and so on. Yeah,
and he won a title, right? Didn't he? He win one of those titles you were talking about, those minor titles.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, Jake's going to win a minor title. Jake's going to win the world title. And it's like, to me, it's not even breathtaking. Like, let me go into the rankings right now and let's look, because it's like people speak with so much emotion about this, but it's like cruiserweight. Okay, we go here. You can there's a lot of like these European fighters. I have no clue if they're good or not. I think Vidal Riley and Jake Paul is a real fight that I'd probably favor Jake. I mean, there's just certain guys you look at and you wouldn't want to match Jake with certain people. Like Robin Safir is a bad matchup. Brandon Glanton's a bad matchup. Chris Bellum Smith is probably a bad matchup. So you wouldn't want to do that. Ryan Razaki, Doriticos is a bad matchup because he's got power. You just want, the big thing is, if you match him, you don't want to put him in with a puncher. But, there's really, really smart people building his career. And I hate to say it, but like, people don't understand that a lot of these fighters that you see aren't as talented as you think, but because they have a traditional boxing background and amateur pedigree, people think that they're better than they are, and they're manufactured to a certain level. So Jake isn't that far removed at this point from your traditional amateur boxer. It's just people don't like him because he had money and he's an influencer and he came up in this way and they have a hatred towards him, but he's put in a lot of work and he's not that much removed from some traditional prospects at this point.
Essentially, he's learned entirely on the job. Can you
But
think
a lot of guys have. A lot of guys have. Like Orlando Salido learned on the job. He had no amateur career.
And took on one of the most pedigreed amateur champions in the world, 400 plus amateur fights, nearly undefeated, Lomachenko, and beat him in his second career fight. And I remember watching that fight and going, this is a true road dog veteran that knows every veteran tactic, and he's going to pull off the upset tonight against Lomachenko. We watched it unfold. I remember watching that unfold, and I had no idea that he learned on the job. Any other off the top of your head,
I mean, pretty
fighters?
much most Mexican fighters and most Filipino fighters are not like going to the Olympics traditionally.
Like Charlie
there's
Suarez.
a lot, but if we're like Charlie Suarez, right? So it's like a lot of those fighters that you see, like, I don't know how deep Mark Magsayo's amateur career is, but like a lot of these fighters, Mauricio Lara, I'm sure probably didn't have a distinguished career. Did Venado Lopez even have a amateur career? A lot of guys don't have careers. It comes down to the dedication to the sport, how hard you hit, and if you're a mean guy, right? Because it's like being a great fighter is like the bully world tour. So you got to be the biggest bully going on tour to beat people up. And that's kind of what I like about Brian Norman is he's taken his bullying overseas. So he's taken the bully world tour to Japan to out-bully another bully and to show how mean of a dude he is. He wants to beat him up in his hometown with like 5 people and say, yeah, I'm a bigger bully. I just think that like people don't want a guy like Jake Paul to be as dedicated as he is and to be as relevant as he is in boxing, but he's a capable fighter who's pretty darn good, and he's dedicated himself now for 6 to 7 years, and people just emotionally don't want him to be as smart and navigate the boxing system as well as he has. So it's more so people emotionally not liking him and him antagonizing people that don't like him because he knows that that's going to keep them engaged, because social media, if you're a positive person, social media doesn't work, right? So the smartest thing you could do if you want to have a big social media following is antagonize people, because then they're going to sit at their jobs and, let me write back and get it going. So he gets that going, but he's going to be a world champion. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. He's smart. He sees the system. He sees the path. And it's just going to frustrate people who are passionate and don't like him.
Lukey, I got to ask you, I remember vividly living in the Bay Area and spending a fortune to come see Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. against Canelo Alvarez at the time.
Oh, you were there. Okay.
At the time, in fact, actually, let me show you a wild picture if I still have it up here. I got to sit next to Fernando Vargas's family. And at the time at the Julio Cesar Chavez, Emiliano Vargas, a top-ranked contender prospect, boy, he was a baby. You want to talk about feeling old? I had the picture. I had been showing it here for all prior week, but
you should.
Anyways, Emiliano was a baby. He was preteen, actually, literally, right? We go to this fight. We spent thousands on great seats. Obviously, I'm sitting next to Fernando Vargas's family. I paid a fortune, thinking that Chavez Jr. was going to do something to Canelo, and he was a punching bag. Probably one of the worst performances that I've seen it with a Canelo opponent in person, because I really haven't seen anybody worse than that. Am I going to be disappointed again? I mean, he's talking a big game at this press conference. My son, his dad said my son is actually training. He's not on drugs anymore. He's gone through rehab. But I just feel like, man, I've been down this road before, and there's even people probably that think that Jake Paul pays his opponents to take dives. I'm sure there's a section of the public that thinks.
But that's the hatred, because that's just people saying things, and they're saying it because, in my opinion, he's an untraditional path boxer, because we get, I don't want to go down that road, but it's weird how it's only Jake Paul that people bring up this nonsense. I don't think that exists at all. I think that things just happen because guys don't work hard enough and there's laziness. Um, I just, I think Jake should win. And I think Chavez is going to redeem himself to a certain degree because this is his last stand. So I think he's going to show a little bit of more heart than he's ever shown in his career, because guys who kind of messed up in their career at points, like maybe say a Zab Judah when he fought Danny Garcia, he showed a little bit of that grit and determination that we didn't see at points. Typically guys like Chavez Jr., I think, are going to have a little bit more go when they feel like, man, I kind of blew it. Like a lot of that anger and frustration that he put into drugs, I think he'll leave it on the line this fight. I just think Jake has too much for him, though.
I think it's going to be a hell of a Los Angeles attraction. I think it's going to, I think numbers wise, it should do really well. I saw how enthused the people who were at the press conference were. Jake Paul could feel the tension. He thinks he has Mexican fans supporting him, but it was very clear from what I could see and hear on the audio that the Mexican fans are really hoping that Chavez Jr. does knock him out, hurt him, do something. But I'm not putting my money on it at all. This could be Chavez Jr.'s last stand. What a career he's had. Did he have an amateur career? Probably learned on the job, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like with Jake Paul, everyone's like, oh man, he can't do it. He didn't have a traditional career. And then like you go through, like if we went through all the world champions right now, at least a few of them are not going to have that traditional path. And the only time we care about that is when it's Jake Paul, because he was a Disney star and a YouTuber, and he had a point in his career where he's obnoxious, and people just don't want him to be as good as he is. If we're being honest, like that's really where it's like, people dislike Jake Paul so much that are traditional boxing fans. They look for reasons to point out his flaws rather than appreciating, here's a guy who has a big fan base, who's treating the sport with sincerity. And I think he's a real boxer now. I don't think he's a influencer boxer. He takes real fights and is signing fighters and is taking a more traditional path and trying to advance traditional fighters. I see him as a real boxing promoter, not doing influencer. And I think he's embraced the boxing culture, and fans just don't want to give the guy credit. And I think it's going to be one of these things where when he loses, or if he wins a title and goes on a run, people are going to go, man, that guy was good. But boxing's a hating sport. People have conflict. And until there's like one moment, he's going to win the boxing fans over, and you're going to see people do a 180 on him. But people just, they're macho and, oh, he's not like us, he was rich. I'm telling you, you can fight, man. If you can fight, you can fight.
I think he's also obviously evolving into one of the top promoters domestically in the U.S. He's done incredible things with all the signings of women champions now on this exact card. I'm excited about this because I was a big fan of Holly Holm, who was a world champion boxer, transitioned into the UFC. I remember when I actually enjoyed watching UFC. She was a great attraction, great star. She's coming back. She's on the card. As a promoter, as someone, for an advocate for women's boxing, what he's doing, I will give him his praises. Not only that, but he's helped a fighter that I remember when I first started my channel on YouTube, one of these first interviews that I got was Phil LaGreco's fighter from Toronto. You know the guy that just beat H2O Silva by knockout? He's an MVP fighter.
Lucas Body, King Lucas Body.
Just a great guy, just an awesome guy. I remember me and Drew were talking to him about how difficult it was for him during COVID, when he really felt like he was peaking in his prime, and his career just took a massive, can't travel, can't leave his region, can't get a fight in the U.S. And now he's the MVP fighter who I'm like, damn, when I saw him fight, was it Silva? I think that fight was on YouTube. I think it was on the undercard. If it wasn't that fight, it was the Italian guy he just fought. It was over 500,000 people watching him fight on YouTube, because it was part of the Mike Tyson undercard. Like 500,000 people saw him fight, from him being on the shoe shine and only 30 people watched it or something, to 500,000 people watching him fight. So yeah, he's a hell of a promoter now, obviously. I'm looking forward to this fight. It's going to be entertaining. I don't know if it's going to be competitive. I don't know anything. I don't have high expectations for that fight. I just think it's going to be a great addition to the summer lineup. Speaking of summer,
I got a hot take for you.
Please.
I think that the 10th best pound for pound fighter is Gilberto Zordo Ramirez.
Aside from his fight with Dimitri Bivol, I've enjoyed his career. Aside from that dominant performance by Dimitri Bivol.
So my list, pound for pound, and chat, get in there and say what you want.
Sure.
Usyk 1, Crawford 2, Bivol 3, Beterbiev 4, Naoya Inoue 5, Jesse Bam Rodriguez 6, Junto Nakatani 7, David Benavidez 8, Canelo 9, and Gilberto Zordo Ramirez 10. That's my pound for pound.
Man, I got to redo my list, Lukey. I won't even entertain it. There was another fantastic press conference, guys. If you didn't watch this one, watch the highlights on whichever major boxing public. I mean, I can only dream of having something like these big channels, Lukey, and actually getting all these great video footage and turning this into a full-time career. But, I mean, just go watch the highlights, guys. Edgar Berlanga, Hamza Shiraz, completely different personalities. Shakur Stevenson, William Zepeda, completely different personalities. Obviously, a language barrier. But I think Edgar Berlanga stole the show. One of the things that's really stood out to me and people were debating is that, you know, Edgar Berlanga really believes, and I saw, Lukey, I was here for the Vegas stuff, the grand arrivals at the MGM Grand. I got to see him, and my wife and I were talking about it. And there's a lot of Mexican fans for Canelo. And I said, you know what? I don't know who talked to him, but he's doing a fantastic job working the Mexican crowd, working the Mexican-American crowd. He really is trying to gain a fan base. I thought he did a fairly good job, but he said he thinks that Mexican fans are demanding a rematch between him and Canelo Alvarez, where I really don't think he did any better than William Skull personally, but he thinks that people are clamoring and demanding a rematch. So I know you're close to his trainer, but is there a little bit of delusion, or could he really improve that much more where a second fight would be actually competitive?
Wait. Who am I close to? So I heard the words you said,
we talked to there. Edgar Berlanga's team, his trainer, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, Mark's my guy. Edgar's my guy. But I mean, part of that is like you have to say stuff at a press conference to get the fans going, right? You say stuff. And Edgar knows he's got to earn these fights, right? I think Edgar knocks out Shiraz. I don't think Shiraz can take it. I think that people grossly underrate how good Edgar is. They don't understand he's a world-class puncher and he can really hit, and he's a mean kid. And you can't teach mean and you can't teach power. He's got both. I think he beats Shiraz, and I think that a great fight for him after that, if he could get to it, would be Jaime Munguia. You win 2 fights like that, you're pretty much ready to fight anybody at that point. And so I get what you're saying. It might be premature because you haven't done it, but if he does that, gets 2 big wins, he can call for any fight.
Well, it seems like he may have it. First of all, I 100% agree with you on 2 very important things, is that you cannot teach power and you cannot teach mean. And mean is one of those things that Terrence Bud Crawford has shown us time and time again in his career. You cannot teach that killer instinct when you have someone hurt, or to hurt someone, the will and the desire to actually really hurt your opponent. I have seen Edgar Berlanga in those type of fights, 16 pro knockouts to start off his career. And then it seems he had a road bump. Now he has a new trainer, and he's looking improved in every fight. Hamza Shiraz was, yeah.
That's his original trainer.
Oh, okay.
And then he had time away from him, and now he's back with him.
Okay, so those were the people behind those 16 pro knockouts. Hamza Shiraz completely disappointed me. We had high expectations here on the Shoe Shine. Me and Drew really thought he could be the guy to take over the middleweight division, but he did not even get past Carlos Adames. Carlos Adames put on a remarkable performance against Hamza Shiraz. Maybe they think it's the weight draining himself. He's obviously got incredible reach, height. He's going to have that advantage. Again, it seems like you don't think it's going to matter at all. You don't think he can take the punches from super middleweights, let alone somebody. Edgar Berlanga to me looks like a light heavyweight.
This might be the biggest puncher in the division outside of Canelo, and you're stepping in there. Yeah, I think Shiraz is a great fighter, but I didn't like the way he was taking Adami's punches. And Adami's, I don't think
looked troubled
as hard as Berlanga. Albeit Adami's a very underrated fighter. I think he's a superstar potential type fighter. And I just think this is going to be a rough one for Shiraz, because you're getting in with a kid who's got a chip on his shoulder, who people don't assess fairly. Kind of in a weird way, Edgar Berlanga kind of gets the Jake Paul treatment, where people are like, oh, he can't be good. He had 16 knockouts. It's not real. Guy hits really hard. And the worst thing you can do is disrespect him and have him a chip on his shoulder with a hard puncher against a guy who's moving up in weight that I think people are going to favor for the fight. And it's going to be tough for him, man. It's going to be tough to take punches from Berlanga.
Lukey, you mentioned Jaime Munguia. I'm just going to put it out there. The fight I want to see, we have Caleb Plant making his return. Caleb Plant actually endeared himself with the Latino community. Like, even they've defended him. Caleb Plant, a local fan base in Las Vegas that's bona fide and real. Maybe one of the most toughest performances against Canelo that I remember. That's the fight I want to see. There's some real bad blood brewing, and I hope that they can make that fight between Caleb Plant and Edgar Berlanga in 2025. Now, speaking of tough nights at the office, Shakur Stevenson, he's been having a lot of hand issues. He did come away with a stoppage in his last fight, but finally this fight, which has been talked about, it was in the works, it was canceled. We're finally getting this fight. This is the co-main event. Maybe Shakur thinks he deserves to be the main event, but tough night at the office, or is it going to be easy work against the guy who has undoubtedly broken records at lightweight with the most punches and volume thrown from a lightweight ever? I saw William Zepeda's entourage. It was unreal, the amount of support he has from his family and his Mexican fan base. I saw, Lukey, they sold like 4,000 seats. They sold out the Cosmo. The one time I saw William Zepeda fight. How's Shakur going to deal with the pressure? How is he going to deal with that pressure?
Even if Shakur makes it an easy fight, it's not an easy fight because you have a hard training camp for an easy fight. It's a great fight. You know, it's a real fun fight. I think that some people look at the Farmer fights and go, okay, that diminished Zepeda's ability or excitement. Tevin Farmer fights a lot different than Shakur. The only thing they have in common is really that they're southpaws. That's really the thing. Tevin's more of an in-the-pocket, turn-you guy. They both have spiritual inspirations I see from Pernell Whitaker. But Shakur is the best fighter I've seen since Floyd Mayweather at gauging distance. So, like, he's a wizard. He can move around the ring and control the distance and gauge punches. Now, where fans can get frustrated is he's so technical and composed and patient, he's not going to rush anything because he knows where his punches and distance are. So you can have very complicated things going on where he's trying to feint a guy subtly to walk into a shot, and he's not going to engage, and the other guy's not going to engage, and you have moments that people deem unexciting. With Zepeda, Shakur is one of my favorites, right? I really like Shakur. I think this is going to be a real special night for Shakur, is my gut feeling. I think this is going to be a very special night for him because he really deserves a big fight. And this is the type of opponent and the type of stage that guys like Floyd Mayweather had wins. They had big wins. And if Shakur is going to be compared and at that level, this is one of those opponents where you have a breakout performance. To me, this is his Chico Corrales moment. Not exactly the same, but if he's going to be on that trajectory, this is that moment. And I think that he's going to have a special performance.
To me, you bring up Chico Corrales. I want to bring up, I can't believe I read that he's going to fight again. We just saw him in Las Vegas with his family, Castillo. I think about Floyd Mayweather versus Castillo 1, where it was really, really close. In fact, that maybe we can argue that, and many people have still argued that is the only legitimate loss that Floyd Mayweather should have had on his record, was the very first fight with Castillo. Could you see a possibility that this will be Shakur's first Floyd Mayweather Castillo 1, where, Zepeda landed so much, hurt him. Maybe Zepeda won this fight 7-5, and other people will argue no. And of course, Shakur walks away with the win. Could it be like that, or is it going to be more like the second fight where Floyd was like, I'm making all the corrections I need to. This shit ain't even going to be a problem. Could Zepeda have that performance against him?
Yeah, because pressure's a mother, right? So, like, if Shakur has a low output, that's a terrible style against a guy who throws a lot of punches. The other thing is, if you're just going to throw with one of the most accurate punchers, you can hit the canvas a lot. Because if Shakur picks his punches and throws good straight shots that are concussive, it's a great, compelling fight. It's a world-class fight. These are two great fights. I'm very excited to see them. You can talk yourself into both outcomes, right? And that's a good thing. I try to go back to history, and I can't recall a fighter like Zepeda beating a guy that we think might be one of the best fighters in the world in this situation. Maybe Maidana versus Broner would be the closest comparison. And that's what makes me lean to Shakur, is I can't think of someone that I thought is Shakur might be the best fighter in the world based on what he's capable of doing. But he just really hasn't had these opponents just yet for that to be firmly cemented. Like, it just sounds like a bald white man sitting on a soapbox preaching to everybody. Like, you can pick holes in it, and guys can get frustrated with you. But in terms of what I've seen him do, he's a special, special guy, and I also wonder, and this is me thinking out loud, is Zepeda overtraining a little bit? And is he starting to hit some ups and downs and going hard every camp? And that might show up in this fight, as I'm wondering, is years of training to the max maybe the optimum way to do things?
Does that engine have high miles? Hey, one great thing about this fight, I guess they finally secured. There was speculation that Turkey was thinking about staging it in Central Park, which would have been very unique. Could have potentially been a great outdoor fight, but I think I like this even better. Barclays Center, MGM. I'm sorry, man, the other spot, the Garden would have been my first choice because they're natural boxing venues, but this tennis stadium in Queens, it looks like it's going to be a perfect venue for fight fans to see a perfect view. I mean, you could see in these pictures how great the view is with the ring going to be there in the middle. This is going to be interesting. At least it's going to be exciting, and it sure should be a whole lot better than the fiasco that they had in Times Square. Personally, let me know what you guys think about this in the chat or in the comments. Do you like this venue? This is the Queens Tennis Stadium, right, where they have world-class tennis. Interesting, at least, right? Interesting choice of venue.
I mean, look, I don't go to much live boxing anymore, and fans hate it when I say it. It's like I mainly go to shows when I know people. My TV is very good at showing me the fights, so I don't have that same love of needing to go to events. And part of that is being on the road for 15 years, going to shows and kind of going to the smaller shows. So developing a passion for the smaller fights kind of takes away your passion for the big fights because you learn how to do it. But it seems like it's a great experience for those that want to go. And it seems like it's an interesting venue. And once again, I haven't really thought much about it.
Yeah, I heard Edgar Berlanga. If you missed that press conference, Edgar Berlanga made a great point that he's not letting his opponent beat him in his backyard. That New York is his city. It ain't going to happen. So I wonder if that's going to add additional pressure. Like you said, Lukey, you're predicting a stoppage, a knockout, if it's going to put more pressure on him to get a stoppage in his backyard, because at least I like that. You ain't gonna stop me in my hometown, my backyard.
I just
There's
think
a stadium.
Hits too hard. There's certain guys and there's certain sizes where it's just going to be really difficult. And Shiraz is a guy who gets hit. He gets hit, and he's more of a distance guy, but he gets hit with clean shots. Ammo caught him good in that fight with Ammo. And if you get caught with that punch by Berlanga, you're hitting the canvas. So,
well, speaking of smaller fight venues, Commerce, I think this one's taking place this Saturday, guys. This is the only, I think maybe you said of some other stuff, but for me, this is the one fight I'm looking forward to seeing this weekend. It's going to be on UFC Fight Pass, Bohacek versus Fox. Lukey, I've never seen a better fight in Las Vegas than Bohacek versus Virgil Ortiz. That 12th round was something else. And the fact that Virgil Ortiz tasted the canvas twice in that fight and still somehow managed to walk away with the victory. I got the 12th round right here on my, I think it'll play. I'm not sure. Does that play? Man, it was something else, but nonetheless, it's not going to play. Bohacek is something else. He's special. He has a last-minute replacement, Brian Mendoza, who I talked to right before that fight.
Wait. Bohacek is not fighting Mike Fox anymore?
Is he not? What did my graphic say?
Wait, I
Mikhail
thought you
Fox.
said Mendoza. Yeah,
Oh no, I'm
Mikhail
just remembering what an incredible year he had when he fought Brian Mendoza. Brian Mendoza was his last minute replacement. Beats the brakes off of Brian Mendoza. Has an incredible performance against Virgil Ortiz. Some people could debate that he should have got the nod and he should have been in a great position to have a title opportunity. To be honest, I think he's one of the most dangerous guys there is at 154. What can you tell me about Mikhail Fox? I think that fight, that's his opponent, Mikhail Fox, this Saturday.
Yeah, I'm just messing things up. Really good fighter, man. Good distance fighter. Been in camp with Gervonta Davis. Had some tough luck. His Ergashev loss was a really close fight. I thought he beat Gabriel Maestre. His only real outright loss was to Mean Machine, who's a world-class fighter. He upset a gold medal Olympian, the Uzbekistan fighter in 2019 that won 2016 Olympics. Really, really good guy. He's just a guy that he took a blue-collar path, and I wouldn't be shocked if this is a competitive fight, and I wouldn't even be shocked if Mike wins this fight. He's a real guy, and I always go back to this. It's going to sound corny, but he never lost his self-belief in himself. So he's a guy who he's got a loss or two, but he trains like a champion, and he believes that he's still a top guy, and he never doubts himself. And those guys are always dangerous. He's a real throwback fighter in that sense. And Boachuk is the same way. He's lost, I think, 2 fights. One or 2 fights. How many fights he lost? One.
So the one fight where Brandon Adams via knockout, and you talk about guys that are that pull out like upsets, is Brandon Adams. I can remember that guy. That was on a NBC boxing show, right?
That was an experience gap. So that was a tough fight for Boachuk at the time, because Brandon's really good fighter that's always been underrated. But Boachuk's also, you get stopped and then you come back and you go on a tear. His confidence didn't leave him because he got knocked out. And these are tough cookies. These are the type of fight fans should really be drawn to, where you have 2 guys who've taken losses and they still are taking tough fights, and they're not diminished and looking ragged.
Yeah, I want to give praise to Brian Mendoza, who lives here in Las Vegas, because Lukey, a lot of people wrote him off too. He came off that loss against Jesus Ramos Jr. and a couple fights later, he beat the current 154-pound champion Fundora. He knocked out the towering Inferno. He knocked him out. He's the one guy that can say, I beat that champion. I beat the current champion. I knocked him out flush, and there are guys that sometimes you write them off with 1 or 2 losses. Next thing you know, they're either becoming world champion or they're doing incredible things. So that division is absolutely one of my favorite divisions in all of boxing. Hey, Lukey, I want to thank you so much. I want to let everybody know you have a book on Amazon. If you want to tell me the title of that book again.
Yeah, Inside the Ropes of Boxing. I kind of give guides to pro boxing for young fighters there. I write about boxing. I get tired, and I enjoy the show, man. And I hope that people continue to support you. And if you like my opinions, that's really nice, because I have them. And if you really enjoy me, watch the up and coming fighters. Watch the guys on the prelims that might be boring to you, because that's where my heart is. I couldn't care less about the main event fights for the most part. If I don't know the fighters, I don't really care. But it really makes me feel good if really hardcore fans start watching these undercard guys that aren't making the most money, but they're really giving it their all. So if you don't buy my book, if you don't follow me on social media, which is really hard to do anyway, just watch the up and comers for me, because that really is where my heart is.
If you're a hardcore boxing fan, you guys have to be reading BOXINGSCENE.com. One of the best. There's very few outlets right now that are doing the professional work BOXINGSCENE.com is. So much so that I don't know. It seems like Turkey Al-Sheikh has been making it very difficult for everyone at Boxing Scene to even cover their fights. You guys there's real journalism going on over there. Again, May 24th. The next generation of fighters in the Bay Area. I wish I could be there. Sounds like a great way to kick off Memorial Day weekend. The summer's officially here. It's going to be at the Alameda County Fairgrounds Saturday, May 24th. I'm sure tickets are very, very reasonable, and it's a great, actually, family. I'm sure it's a great way for a great family event, right? I mean, like you said, great father and son, father daughter. You guys are into combat sports. We don't know who any of these kids might be. The next Nonito Donaire, Andre Ward, coming out of the Robert Guerrero out of the Bay Area, could be the next champion coming out of here.
Well, this
Really
is
good.
like I'll sell you on the card, right? This show, the Elite Underdogs Promotions card, what makes it so special is it's a holiday weekend, and typically you want to do something. Maybe you want to take a boat out and get a little tan somewhere. Well, you can do that, but that's typically a one-day activity. Why not mix it in with a boxing show of evenly competitive matched fights, exciting fights in your local community? It won't break the bank. It's reasonable. And you can go up and get some photos with the fighters. And who knows, you might even run into someone that you're like, hey, it's that guy. Because boxing is a very small community. And sometimes these fighters on the small shows are helping big name fighters and they magically make their way. So I have no idea who could be there, but whenever you go to these shows, magically sometimes a big name person might pop up. So I think it's very exciting and you should check it out.
100%, guys. I hope everybody has a blessed, beautiful weekend. SP, I appreciate you doing great mod work in the channel. Everybody that came stop by to support me and Lukey Boxing here. He also is on YouTube, guys, at Big Dog Lukey on YouTube. I'll see you guys on Monday night. I wish everybody a great weekend. Thanks again to Big Dog Lukey Boxing. See you guys on Monday. Peace.